I'm about to walk into a stranger's crawl space and look for a stereo receiver that's been out here for 30 years.
Watch your step.
Thank you. Where did you say it is?
Alright, it's back in this back corner.
The electronics depository.
That is my childhood right
Does your
there.
NES need to be fixed?
That's still hooked up to the TV in the living room, actually.
Alright, this one says stereo receiver.
That's where it is, right there.
Alright. Oops, I didn't break anything, I promise. Well, as I always say, what's the point in having a bunch of space if you're not going to put stuff in it?
Been down here for 29 years since I bought my first CD changer and receiver.
Wow.
Right there. Bring it back into service.
Alright. What do we got here?
It's a 1974 Lafayette LR-910, I believe.
This thing is so clean. Doesn't look like it's been down in a crawl space for 30 years.
It's been in that box since 1996.
My goodness.
When I worked all summer to buy my first Yamaha stereo receiver and CD changer. My parents didn't have a place for it, and so it got just stored down here.
And you're wondering if this thing's even going to turn on and play music again.
Yeah, I like to go through it and put it on the dim bulb and just check it out and clean the controls.
Well, I think I can do that for you. Let's get this thing upstairs and onto the bench, huh? Well, that was fun. That is not something I ever normally do. That was a very unique experience. I've done that before with a friend's basement, of course, you know, the Marantz 2226. So you heard the guy. 29 years this thing has been stuck in the crawl space. So we need to be cautious when we turn this on. We're going to use the variac and a dim bulb and make sure we get these power capacitors to reform or whatever the best we can. But before we do that, let's actually get a close look at this thing. It's actually in really, really nice shape. So there it is, the Lafayette LR-910. This is not a brand that I ever really think about. I'm aware of Lafayette, but I've never used any receiver of this brand, and I don't think I've seen very many in person either. The best I can tell, Lafayette was founded in the 30s, went bankrupt in 1981, according to Wikipedia. And I think for their stereo receivers, they contracted a lot of the manufacturing out to other folks like Kenwood. People in the comments are going to know a lot more than I do, so please, if you know, leave a comment. We've got the original owner's manual, and it came with some fuses. Maybe we'll need those, maybe we won't. But inside of here, we've got the full schematic as well, which is really nice because I cannot find a service manual for this just yet. At least Hi-Fi Engine doesn't have one, which is really unusual. And there it is, with built-in circuit for 4-dimensional stereo. I don't really understand how this is going to be a true quadraphonic receiver without actually being a quadraphonic receiver. I mean, if you look at the schematic, it looks like a stereo receiver and only a stereo receiver. This thing is also advertised as being 70, see, power rating 70 RMS, that is the two channels combined. That's misleading. And yeah, just based on the weight of this, based on the way the circuits look, I was like, there's no way this makes 70 watts per channel, and that's right, it never says it makes 70 watts per channel. But yeah, it's in remarkably good condition. I mean, there's one scratch right here, and then the faceplate, honestly, mostly nothing. It's not even dusty. Like, this was well kept. Here's my favorite part about the back. We've got the original notice for don't grab this. The original, this is not a handle notice. It's still here from the factory. And you can tell because that is not a standard style staple. That is a little bit shorter than a regular staple that we get in our staplers here. But in the back, quite simple, pretty old school. No corrosion on anything at all. This is all just perfect. Okay, so I've only ever done this with tube amplifiers, but let's go ahead and get this thing on the variac and bring it up very slowly. And here it is. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna put this right in line with the dim bulb. And what that's gonna do is it's going to limit the current, if it needs to, as we bring up the voltage. So what's gonna happen is, if we've got a bad short somewhere, this will light up bright. That's all there is to it, really. But before we do all of that, let's go ahead and pull this cover, take a look inside, make sure there's not anything, you know, really bad that we should be aware of. And that way, we'll be able to figure out also where we can put a multimeter to read out the power supply, make sure the power supply is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It'd be a real shame if we just sat here waiting for this to do something and there was some larger problem inside of here. Okay, let's pull this cover off. First time in at least 30 years. Wow. Exceptionally clean. Very nice. So just by looking at this thing, we automatically know that this is a capacitor coupled amplifier. That's a very common design for the early 70s with solid state, and it's characterized by this single large capacitor right here. A direct coupled amplifier like a Marantz 2270 would have two of these, but like a Marantz 2230, it just has one of these. Marantz 2230 has two other larger capacitors. That's these two right here. These are the actual filtering capacitors for the output stage. This is the last stop for the audio signal before it goes to your speaker terminals. And of course, nice cute little FM tuner. I was looking at the schematic. I believe this is the phono preamp. It's so tiny. It's all just crammed right in there. And then of course it'll be very interesting to see if any of our lamps are still working. I've got a feeling they might be though. This thing's in really nice shape. By looking at the schematic, we see the power supply right down here. And we see these two fuses for rails to our power amplifier, and they go to the collector of our output transistors right here. So let's go ahead and attach the multimeter to the collector of one of these. Looking back here, these are TO66 output transistors, which are kind of rare and hard to find. And the way you measure the collector is you just attach right here on any one of these little screws right here, because the case itself is the collector. Get this end of the meter on ground, and now we're able to see if anything is happening. Alright, this is the big moment. First, let's go here and turn this on. Next, we gotta plug this into our variac. Turn our variac on, and we're gonna be looking for a few things here. We'll go in order from left to right. We want to see these lamps start to turn on once we get enough voltage. We want to see something show up right here in the form of DC, meaning that our power supply is working. We're not looking at this one too much, we're just, increasing the voltage. And then this, if this starts lighting up bright, we know we've got a pretty big problem in here. I would expect this thing to power up just fine without any issues, and it's probably going to work. That's what my guess is for this one. But don't let me forget the most important thing. We might want that turned on so we actually see some activity. And you know what? Let's take it one step even further and try and get this kilowatt in here so we can measure the amperage draw off of our dim bulb. So without further ado, let's bring this thing up. And we can already see at just 10 volts, we've got life out of this thing. That voltage is being drawn up. So let's bring this up to about 30 volts. And let's see what we've got going on here. So at 30 volts, we've got a 40 milliamp current draw. Nothing out of this bulb. It's not warm. And 13 volts on our power supply rail. So that's looking good. I'm not seeing any of these numbers change really. Everything seems to be pretty stable. So let's bring it up to 45 and see what happens. Okay, at 50% more voltage, we have 50% more current draw. So far, so good. I don't see anything in the display yet, but I'm sure something will show up eventually. Let's again increase the voltage. We're at 60 volts AC, pulled about 0.1 amps, and I do now see a very, very faint glow from the dial face. I also see the tuner signal strength meter pegging itself out, so it's happy about something. And if I switch to phono, it turns off, so that means we've got life out of our FM tuner. We see the current draw went down to about 90 milliamps, so that's a good thing. It means our capacitors are forming, or whatever. So many of you are always commenting saying, you shouldn't run an amplifier without loads on it. So let's just put these resistors on it, call it a load, and maybe the exact same thing will happen that would have happened anyways. I have never, ever had a problem running an amplifier without a load connected to it. But if you people insist, this is the amplifier to do this on. I see no change. Let's bring it up to 75. Our display is a little brighter. You can maybe see that. Maybe the camera will give you a present. Yeah, see? That's not glow from the room. That is actual glow from the lamps in there. Okay, I'm seeing no changes. Let's bring it up to 90. At 90, pulling 0.18 amps. Still no brightness in the bulb. Got 41 volts DC on our power supply. And it would appear to me we've got all functioning lamps on this receiver. With, yet again, nothing bad happening. Let's bring this up to 105. And here we are, folks. We're starting to run into the limits of the Variac and what it's able to give this receiver. And, you know, if I put this all the way to max, I might not get the full 120. This can actually bring the voltage up to 150 volts, but since we're in series with the dim bulb is taking up a lot of that, and it's not allowing the voltage to go as high as it normally would if we weren't with the dim bulb. This is all looking very normal to me at this point. Let's bring this up even further. See if we can get the 120. Can't get the full 120, but the fact that we've got the 110 is really something. This is pretty much about what I would expect to be seeing out of a receiver like this. Everything is looking very normal. And check out this beautiful blue display. Let's get some of these lights turned off. Very nice. There's just nothing quite like that color. I love it. So there it is, folks. This thing is running. Got a little bit of light on the filament on the bulb. 0.3 amps approximately. I think we can plug this directly into the wall, hook up some speakers, and see what's going on here. I think we have successfully brought this thing back up. Take this out of here. Throw it on the kilowatt so we can still watch the amp draw, just for funsies. Alright folks, here goes nothing. Let's see it. And there you go. Pulling about the same current it was on the Variac. And that is wall voltage. See our current draw going down slightly, which is exactly what we want to see. We don't want to see that going up. Oh yeah, this thing is eager. I got this thing pegged out. We got it on FM stereo. That lamp works. Oh, actually. Alright, that's our first sign of a dirty control. Let me show you. So we're in FM stereo. I don't know if it's going to do it again, but I go back to phono and it turns off. And then look at that. I'm back in FM. See how long it took to turn back on? So if I do this, go back, or if I jiggle this around, of course the more I do this, the clearer things are going to get. So I guess that problem might be solved. We will see when we attach some speakers. Before I check with speakers, I'm going to check what's happening at these load resistors, aka the speaker terminals, and I'm going to see, is there any DC? And I already know the answer to that question. It's going to be no, because the filter capacitors are doing that work for me. So if we check right there, that's pretty much nothing. That's ground, and that's pretty much nothing. So nothing coming out of the speakers. Now I'm going to set this to AC. What I'm going to look for is sound. So if I put this on this terminal right here and I turn the volume up, I should see stuff like that. That right there, all that jumping around, that's music. Or whatever the heck is coming through the FM tuner. So our right channel works. We'll check the left channel. What do we get? Music. Okay. It's time to hook up speakers. Let's go. So without further ado, this is the moment. Yep. Won't back down. This receiver won't back down. That's pretty cool. But listen to that. You hear all that? You hear that? That's a dirty tuner cap. So we'll have to clean the tuner cap. By the way, I have no antenna hooked up to this. So we're doing quite well. Yeah. And yeah, just me jiggling it around there. Got it, pulling that station in. See? We're moving through a bunch of just complete dust right now. See? Look what I just got it to do. So we'll need to clean that for sure. Volume control is dirty. Balance control, not that dirty. Treble, quite dirty. Hear that? Well, it already cleared itself up because, you know. Bass control, pretty clean. Loudness, working. Mono, working. Tape monitor, working. High filter, FM muting. Yeah, FM muting works. That's a nice circuit. It's got like a little fade out to it. I like that. All right. Clean the controls, test the phono, probably test aux with everybody's favorite song. Let's go ahead and do that now, actually. And it's working. Yeah, we can really hear that dirty volume control now. But that is an easy fix. All right, so we saw this thing is in pretty good shape. It doesn't really need much of anything at all, so we're just gonna go through and do a general service on this thing. First things first, I want to get this tuner cap cleaned because we heard all of that weird noise in there, so we're just gonna take this stuff and just spray the heck out of it, really. And I want to do this first thing because this needs to evaporate before we get any legitimate sound or performance out of this tuner. So we'll give this as much time as it needs to evaporate, and then the tuner should work perfectly. Also, I finally purchased oil as a result of all of you people pointing out that I did not grease the or oil the spindle bearing on that turntable. So I bought some of this stuff. This is just sewing machine oil, which is a recommendation I found on the internet. And we got this little dropper thing it came with. I'm just going to put a little tiny drop on the bearing here for this tuner shaft. I just feel like this tuner knob should be a little bit easier to turn, so I'm just going to get a little tiny bit of oil right here. There's some. Get the other side. And maybe that'll make it feel a little better. Let's come over here to on the actual cap itself. Let's just get the tiniest drop of oil in there. Yeah, a little more. Yeah, I think that feels a little bit better, honestly. And for getting these controls cleaned, it looks like we're probably going to have to go in from underneath. So let's go ahead and remove this bottom cover. Let's see what we've got under here. Oh, need to... It's caught in these little tabs here. There we go. Nothing surprising me under here. There's your power supply. That's very tube amplifier style right there. While we're under here, let's go ahead and test some of the main power supply capacitors. I know that this is our big filter cap we saw up top. This should be 3300 microfarads. And it is. That's perfect. That's really good. Wow. I didn't expect it to be that good. It's exactly 3300, really low ESR. No need to change that. Let's test this one. I don't know what this one's supposed to be, but let's see. It says 256, so I would expect if I moved this around, I'd see 220. 220 microfarad, 25 volt, 0.2 ohms ESR. What does a modern one measure at? Here's a modern 220 microfarad, 25 volt capacitor. Oh, missed it. Yeah, same ESR, similar capacitance. So, you know, that's still within spec. So I'm going to leave that alone. And I would imagine that's what the rest of the capacitors on this amplifier are going to be like. Age is certainly a factor with a lot of this stuff, but it's also hours. I think hours is also important with considering the health of a capacitor. Like if it's 50 years old but it's never been used, I mean, it's probably really not that bad. I'm seeing something I've never seen before with these potentiometers. Let me flip this around and show you. Why is there tape over the cases of these potentiometers? That's interesting. I've never seen that before. And it's covering, you know, the access holes for the solvents, the deoxit that I'm about to use to clean these things. I think I'm going to have to remove the tape, and I don't think I'm going to put it back because it's not necessary. You know, I've never seen this done before. So let's try with this one. Can I get my tweezers on there and lift this up? Whoops. It's the morning, folks. I just had my coffee. Probably shouldn't be doing this right after coffee, but... Oh. Okay, maybe that's not the access. Yeah, there's a hair. I don't know if that's coming through on the camera, but someone's hair has been stuck in this tape. This person's probably dead. Okay, I will say this. Up here there's a little dimple where I think some solvent could get in. I think that's the approach I'll take. I'll just try to get it in through there, hope it just kind of gets to where it needs to be. And then, but this other one, there's this hole right here, so that's gonna be okay. All right, let's bring out the F5. Let's go to town here. Aha. See, the volume pot, we are getting what we need. See, look at that nice big opening that the tape removal revealed. So that's going to be nice. And recently I was inspired by Matt over at Shooksan Audio. Shooksan? Am I saying that correctly? I don't know. But he likes to use his D100L. And so I thought I'd buy some of this stuff. So I can be extra. And I can put a little drop of this stuff in here. And make sure this works very well for a very long time. Now over here is our selector switch. We'll go ahead and use the Deoxit D5 for this. Then over here we've got the push buttons. I find that just going straight in with the D5 on these things is perfectly adequate. That's pretty much it for under here. I think I'm just about done, but there is one thing I noticed, and it is a nasty, weird looking solder joint. It is that one right there. And I don't know, it looks like it was that way from the factory. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna reflow that real quick and call that good. That's really all I'm gonna do there. And I'm gonna do that with a brand new soldering tip that I just bought, because the one I'd been using came with my iron, and I have no idea how long that thing has been used for. There we go. That looks a little nicer. Okay, let's come back up top. I think we're mostly done down here for now, at least. Normally for one of these I would do lamps, but I think that this is a very low hour unit and I don't think it's worth it to do the lamps right now. If lamps do need to be done, looks like they're really easy to replace. But if we were to replace them, let's just take a look under here and see what it would take. Okay. Make sure to use a #1 screwdriver for this, because these will strip real easy. Let's see. Oh yeah. Yep, if you were to change these, it's just like a car. Just swap them out. That is crazy simple. Yeah, that can happen when it needs to happen. I don't need to do that in this video. But over here, it's interesting how they did the tuning meter shroud. It's just completely made out of paper. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and replace that paper, because I did notice in the in looking at this thing, this is actually a slightly different color. And I think that's due to the yellowing of this paper, because I didn't see any vellum paper inside of this. So let's take a look here. Oh, very interesting. Yeah, that's a very specifically engineered piece of paper right there. I don't know. Do you think I can remake this fancy piece of paper here for this lamp? I might as well give it a shot. I'll try. First we'll need to remove that lamp so we can get to that screw. It's at 8-volt 0.25 amp. This is a little more than I bargained for. Alright, I don't want to desolder that, we'll just cut it. This video's been so boring lately, I need to give you all something interesting to watch. There. A little slit. I don't think that will hurt anything. Alright, let's go engineer a piece of paper. Well, that is definitely one of the more odd designs I've seen. Sorry I didn't have the camera in a better spot for that, but the paper actually slides through that little crack right there between the chassis and the meter itself. And it does that on both sides. But hopefully that makes the color correct, because this is broken now. Let's just go ahead and clean all this stuff up and give that a test right now. I would say that that is a more similar color to the overall dial face. Let's get you in close there. Turn off some lights so you can actually see it. I mean, they are still like slightly different, but I do think it's a little bit better. So I'll take it. Up top here we've got our very last control to clean, and that is our speaker selector switch / power switch, and that's right here. This one's going to be a real easy one with some deoxit. So this switch is actually kind of cool to watch. You can see that right there is the power switch, and it's being actuated by that white plastic cam. And then over here, you see that cam's not doing anything. That's because this is the speaker selections, all the other stuff. And then when you're all done, here's your last stop, and then it's turned off. For cleaning, we'll come right back here. We're going to focus on this stuff. So I see some contacts down here, so I'll spray a little bit right there. And there's some contacts on the other side too, it looks like. And as I'm doing this, I'm trying not to actuate the power switch too much because, you know, it's that old 50-year-old plastic. We want to be careful. And of course, we got the little ball in here for the detent. Let's just get a little bit of deoxit on there, act as a small amount of lubricant. And that there should be plenty clean. Up top here, I'm just going to take a rag and try to pick up some of the dust that's accumulated in here. It's very clean in here. Don't need any cleaners in here. And the faceplate is very clean, but we will still just go through real quick with a microfiber and just take all the dust. Make it look as perfect as we can. Take one of these foam Q-tips, get the corners here. That's a little detail thing a lot of people might not think about. got this thing more or less serviced. So let's turn it on. Let's see how it sounds. We got FM. That's a lot better. Dare I say the reception is better? There's no more of that scratchiness. So that's gone. Yeah, this is great. And then I don't hear static. That works great. That's quiet. That's quiet. And then no more trouble here, like we had noticed earlier. The AM radio does work. I had it on a station earlier. There you go. AM radio works, and it works great. Alright, let's try everybody's favorite song again. That sounds awesome. I like it. I like it a lot. Let's go ahead and test out the phono preamp, make sure that's working okay. Alright, are we gonna hear Hooked on Classics? Let's see. We sure are. Sounds great. Nothing wrong there. And my record player still works. Yay! Sorry. Turntable. My turntable still works. I was gonna wait to check this later. That's supposed to be on 91.9 right now, and that's what we are listening to, but it does not say 91.9 on the dial, so let's fix that. There's two ways, well, three ways we could fix this. Number one, we could try to shimmy the string along the pulley here, or wheel, I don't know. Number two, do a full FM alignment, which is outside of the scope of this project. Or number three, you just kind of lift up that little tabby-do there, slide it on the string, and you're done. And that's what I'm going to do. So we got a little bit of glue there that could inhibit us slightly, but I'm not terribly worried. Of course, got to be pretty careful. Okay, so I got the tab lifted. Now I need to break the glue joint. No, I am loose. Didn't even realize it. So we're still on FM stereo. We'll just hold this cap in place and just slide the needle until we're on 91.9. A little bit more. Oh, that might have been too much. Actually, no, I think that was just right. So let's turn it up. Make sure we're still okay. That's about the center there. And I also just checked 105.7, and that looks good as well. So you saw it works just fine even without this metal tab pushed down, so we'll just push that back down again. Can I move it around? No. We don't need glue. That is fixed. Alright, it is time for the best part, the power test. We've got a 1 kilohertz sine wave going through here. We've got 8 ohm load resistors hooked up to the back. I'm looking at the left channel with the scope and the meter here, so let's see, when do we get clipping? Coming up, and there it is, right there. So it looks like if there is an adjustment for it, the symmetry of our clipping is not good, which is a kind of a cap coupled amplifier thing. So we could probably work on that. Let's switch to the right channel and see if it is any different. Yeah, so that one has clipping on the other side. Interesting. So it does about 13 volts AC on both sides, I think. What does that convert to? Yeah, 13 volts is only about 21 watts, so that's not right. I don't have a service manual to tell me which one of these is the bias control, and I would assume the second of the 2 per channel is for the clipping symmetry. So that's interesting. I'll have to do a little bit more research and see which one is which, or just kind of go for it and look at the circuit and figure it out for myself. Alright, so looking here at the power amplifier, we've got our 2 channels right here. We have RV 601, 602, 603, and 604. So 601 and 602 are right here. If I had to guess, that might be our symmetry control, because it just goes straight to ground. It's coming right off of our positive rail here for the outputs. So that would be my guess there. And then if you look at 603 and 604, they are in line with the temperature sensing diode, I think, for the bias control. So I would imagine that these two control your bias. You can see right there, we're clipping. Wondering if this changes that. Yes, it does. Okay, yep. So that's our clipping symmetry control, which is very nice to see. Let's go right there. So what I'm looking to do here is I'm looking to make it so the clipping is symmetric. If I turn this, I can get it to go way off on one side or way off on the other. So let's just get these to be totally even, right? And the way we do that is kind of back off until we see a nice clean sine wave there. Yeah, I'd call that pretty good right there. Let's go ahead and do that for the other channel. Get that volts per division put up. Yep, see, we are quite uneven there. Let's go bring that in. I'd call that nice and even right there. So we have symmetric clipping now. Alright folks, the plot thickens. I've got the bottom cover removed because I want to look at the power supply. So if we take a look at our schematic here, we see we've got the bridge rectifier, and then it goes out here. That's our filtering capacitor. It says 6.3, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be 63. And then we go over here. It would appear that we're supposed to have at least 62 volts right here, which is, you know, it's a 63 volt capacitor, kind of pushing the limit, but we don't have that. The only way we're going to get 62 volts on that amp board is if we've got something greater than that coming out of the power supply here. So if we check out our DC voltage at the filter capacitor, we see we've only got 58.5. So that is the maximum voltage we could see anywhere at all. We need to understand why our power supply voltage is so low when we know our line voltage is good. You know, I'm pretty dang sure my house is given a full 120. Let's see what we've got at the fuse here, measuring an AC. Yeah, we've got 122 volts AC coming out of the wall. So anyways, let's take a look now at our secondaries on our transformer here. So basically what's happening is you've got the AC coming out from these purple wires, and these 4 diodes are your bridge rectifier, and that's converting it to DC, being filtered by that massive capacitor that you see on the other side. And I noticed something kind of weird here when I was looking at these AC voltages. On one leg of the secondary, we've got 22.64, and then the other end, we've got 21.3. Now, that's kind of interesting. These should be equal to one another, and they're not. So then let's do some math right here. We have a total 44 volts AC going across this secondary, right? So if we take that number and multiply it by 1.41, which is root 2, that is theoretically the maximum amount of DC we should ever be able to see out of the bridge rectifier. So 44.06 times 1.41. So technically we should be seeing 62, assuming no losses in these diodes. But we've got a 5 volt loss or drop across here. So I'm wondering if one of these is leaking a little bit. And I wonder if I take these diodes out of circuit and then I measure my secondaries again, I wonder if we'll see the same numbers. And then if I replace these, I wonder if we'll get any improved performance out of the power supply. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. First, I'm going to remove those from circuit with the power turned off. I'm going to unplug it for this one also. So we're going to heat up the Heiko FR300, and we're going to remove the solder from those posts and undo the wires and stuff. So we've got our 2 secondary wires. I'm plugged back in. I'm going to Go to ground here, and I'm gonna see what kind of voltage we have here in AC. So on this one, got 34.5 on that one, and 6 on that one. That seems bizarre. I don't know what to think of that. I mean, let's see what we've got total across it. Total, we've got 44.4. I'm not sure what to think of that, folks. Maybe some of you magnetics people can chime in and tell me what I'm looking at here, but I would have expected each of those to be the same. But the drop across them, or the AC across them, is still what we're looking for. And I would expect it to go down a little bit as we've got this thing drawing current, you know? That's totally normal. So I don't see anything completely out of the ordinary there. However, I do think I want to replace these diodes and just see if that changes anything at all. So these diodes say S1.5 on them, which according to my research and one eBay listing says it's a 200 volt 1 amp diode. I've got some UF 4004s, which is 1 amp 400 volt. So let's replace these with some overkill ultra fast diodes and see what we've got going after that. Okay, those diodes are replaced. And I tell you what, if I got that wrong, we're gonna know very quickly that I got that wrong. But I don't think I did. I think I did it right. I hope I did it right. So let's see. I'm feeling a little nervous, so let's go dim bulb first and see if that is gonna tell us anything. Okay, that looks good. It would appear I did nothing wrong since we have positive DC voltage on our filter capacitor. Cool. Let us plug straight back into the wall then. And if I did anything, if this mattered at all, we should see something greater than 58 right there. So let's see. I'll give it a chance to come up, I guess. Okay, well I guess that was all for nothing and completely a waste of time, so whatever. That's just how this thing is, I guess. We're just not gonna see the 62 volts out of here. I don't know. I'm just a moron with a soldering iron. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's just put this thing back together, and I think I've got an idea for how we're gonna set what I believe is the bias. Okay, so I think I figured out the bias here. I was getting kind of hung up on voltages listed in here, and I don't think I should have been. So I just referenced the Marantz 2230 service manual, which gives instructions on how to set the bias on that amplifier. And this is the exact same design in a sense. So what the Marantz 2230 wants is this resistor right here, R630 and R629. It wants 5 millivolts across essentially the same resistor in that circuit. And I tried measuring across those resistors and adjusting this potentiometer, and I got stuff. So what I did is I found the resistors. They're these green ones in the very back. And what I can do is I can hook on to one leg and hold this probe on the other. And I set them for 10 millivolts. And it looks like this one's been holding pretty well. We're at 11. I guess I can bring that back to 10. Oh, wrong way again. Yeah, super wrong way. So there's 10 right there. Now let's check the other side again. If I could ever get my probe on there. Okay, what do we have? 9. So let's make that 10, right? Wrong way. And there you go. 10 millivolts. So that's just a tiny little bit of bias, tiny little voltage drop going across there. That gives us something, right? So how about we go ahead and let's redo the power test. If Of course, now that we've messed with everything, our symmetry is probably going to be off, but let's see. Are we working here? We want, yep, this is our right channel. So let's take a look and see what's happening on the right channel. Our symmetry is still pretty good, but now we're up to about 14 volts AC, which is better than we saw before. Let's switch over to the left channel, see what it's up to. I think we have to redo the clipping symmetry on the left channel. And there we go. Gets us our 14 volts AC. And that gets us to about 24.5 watts per channel. I don't really know what to do to get it to 35, if it's ever even supposed to be 35. But just by looking at this thing, this looks a lot like my 2215B, which has a very similar setup. And that amplifier does about 15-20 watts per channel, of course. So I don't know where they're getting this 35, folks. I really don't. I don't think that I can expect to get 35 out of this thing here today with my limited knowledge of this stuff. But what I do know is we have symmetric clipping. We have a bias set that is the same on both channels. Got a nice warm heat sink there, not too warm though. I think this is correct. I think we've got it. Check it out, folks. Look at this thing. It is looking just gorgeous. It cleaned up so nicely. The blue display is incredible. The switches are all clean now. Sounds great. Pretty happy with this thing. So that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my subscribers and thank you to my members who get early access to videos just like this one. And big thanks especially to our volunteer for this receiver. They reached out to me and told me all the detail about this thing, and just the light bulb went off in my head. Wouldn't it be cool to get the unearthing of this thing on video real time? And we did. And this couldn't have turned out better. Thank you so much again. I will see you in the next one.
Every single listener who writes in and tells us we are